So they're beloved in right-wing circles. They've amassed millions of followers, and they're among Donald Trump's most vocal supporters. But as it turns out, they were also being paid by Russia. 6 conservative influencers are making headlines after it was revealed that they were part of a covert Kremlin-sponsored campaign to influence politics inside the United States. That's according to the Department of Justice indictment this week of 2 operatives with Russian state TV who allegedly funneled nearly $10 million of laundered money into a Tennessee-based media outlet, which was basically used as a front company to spread Kremlin propaganda inside the United States. Now, as NBC News reports, that company fits the description of the right-wing startup Tenet Media. And while it may not sound familiar to you, the name of that media company, the roster of commentators they hired for this alleged Russia scheme were already brand names in conservative media, including right-wing rage posters like Tim Pool and Benny Johnson. You've probably seen their names on Twitter. One commentator's contract required them to produce 4 weekly videos in exchange for $400,000 a month, plus bonuses. That's about $5 million a year for those of you who don't have a calculator. Now, to be clear, the indictment doesn't say that they knew they were on Russia's payroll. In fact, it does say that 2 of the 6 commentators were deceived. Nor have they been accused of criminal wrongdoing at this point. To borrow a phrase from Russian spycraft, though, these folks were most likely just useful idiots, unwitting accomplices who cashed fat paychecks and didn't ask enough questions. Since the indictment, 5 of those 6 commentators have released statements. Some have defended the content they created as their own ideas. Some have claimed to be victims, and most have denied knowledge of the scheme pretty categorically. But all of that doesn't matter that much now. I mean, a lot of the damage has already been done. It's bad enough that their political views are so warped. They were apparently willing to deliver what is obviously pro-Russian propaganda on their own accord.
This is psychotic. Ukraine is the enemy of this country. Ukraine is our enemy.
The Ukraine operation is clearly something that is being run to enrich our elites and also, of course, to give unaccountable mountains of cash to some of the most evil people on earth.
Awesome dudes. We're subsidizing small businesses in Ukraine.
Some of the people who run Ukraine are driving around in Bentleys and some of the most expensive cars in Europe.
Ukraine is the greatest threat to this nation and to the world. We should rescind all funding and financing, pull out all military support, and we should apologize to Russia.
I mean, given all those ideas, it's pretty clear why Russia would think of them as assets. Of course, all of this raises the very plausible question of whether other right-wing pundits are secretly on Russia's payroll, whether they know it or not. But we're also learning that when it comes to Russian interference, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Dan Goldman of New York. So I want to get to all of the events happening. But first, you have a lot of expertise in this, and it's important for people to understand. So I want to start there. I mean, it's significant, I think, that DOJ is cracking down on this in advance of the election. It does feel like, and you've studied this closely, their tactics, the Kremlin's tactics, are also the more sophisticated than they have been in the past in terms of how they're trying to spread disinformation. A lot of it is already out there, even though there's a crackdown. How concerned and kind of eyes wide open should people be out there who are trying to trying to differentiate between accurate information and what's being pushed out there through these sources?
It's incredibly important for people to recognize not only what the DOJ released this week, which was incredibly brazen and that was fulsome and somewhat unusual for the department to release such detailed information, but it is part of this transparent effort to make sure that the public understands that Russia is trying to once again infiltrate our election for the benefit of one candidate, in this case, Donald Trump. They did it in 2016 in a way that no one really expected. But the way that they did it was to use their own fake bots and their own fake news sites and social media platforms or individuals. Now what they are doing is they recognize that it is a lot more effective if they can funnel their propaganda and their disinformation through trusted influencers in this country. And that's what is so startling about this case is you you have these two far-right novices who started a media company. They got paid $10 million by Russia to parrot Russia propaganda. It remains to be seen what's going to happen to the two heads of this tenant media, and it still remains to be seen what kind of evidence there is as to whether these social influencers knew that their hundreds of thousands of dollars per episode that they were being paid by this nascent company came from Russia or not. But as you pointed out, what they're saying is explicit Russia propaganda. The idea that Ukraine, a democracy in Europe that was invaded by a dictator, Vladimir Putin, is the enemy of this country, is so preposterous. And I feel bad for Ronald Reagan, who must be rolling in his grave to see this Republican Party rally around Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, it's crazy, the changes that have happened on that particular issue. Let me quickly just ask you, I mean, it seems like you touched on, we right now don't know that they knew. We don't know whether they knew or not. Do you feel like, is your gut that they were useful idiots, as they say in Russian statecraft, or that it's possible? Could there be another shoe that drops here?
There absolutely could be another shoe that drops. I think it's pretty clear that the heads of this media company knew, because their entire funding was from Russia. And that's how they were able to pay these people. And so there's a lot more to learn about what that relationship it is. It is possible that these influencers didn't know where the source of the money. They were just getting paid by tenant media and they didn't know. But it's also possible that there were communications about what messages they should be promoting. And that is what's scary. And it's just the tip of the iceberg of the Republicans' efforts to undermine our democracy, to allow foreign interference for their own political gain, and so that they can then take down the rule of law, take down our democratic institutions, implement Project 2025, which would allow Donald Trump to be a truly authoritarian dictator without any kind of checks and balances. This is all part of the plan. This subcommittee, the weaponization subcommittee I sit on in Congress, the entire purpose of that is to chill any government efforts like what we saw with the DOJ do from getting involved in any way, shape, or form with social media sites so that Russia can do this.
We only have about 45 seconds left, but there's so much going on. I want to ask you there's a debate coming up in 2 days. What is your expectation and hope for what Vice President Harris does in that debate? What do you think people need to see from her in that debate?
Look, as a former prosecutor, she can make the case. She can make the case about her. She can make the case about the danger of Donald Trump. And she's a very strong, powerful woman who has a knack for getting under Donald Trump's skin, and I expect that to happen. But one of the things that we do want to know is her policies, and she's going to have to lay that out. But let's remember, we need to have a democracy in order to implement policies. And what you see from Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney, two very conservative Republicans who disagree almost on every policy matter with Kamala Harris, coming out and supporting her because they recognize that this election is about a lot more than policy. It is about the future of our country and our democracy, and I hope she will emphasize that on Tuesday.
We need a democracy to implement policy. Very well stated, Congressman Dan Goldman. Always great to see you.